it's a real honor for me to be doing this chat with Commissioner Kadri Simson, who's the Energy Commissioner. We did a similar chat, it must be 5 or 6 weeks ago, but that was on Zoom, and so we're actually meeting, doing this in person for the first time, which is really great. And I don't think that there could be any more important time to be having this conversation. And I know you and your colleagues have been doing just a great job in dealing with the critical issues that you've been having with respect to the energy crisis and the effects of the Ukraine war and the like. So let's get into our conversation. In a way, it's sort of a calm period right now, unexpectedly so, from the standpoint that gas prices are low, and actually oil prices are low as well, and that I think from what I'm hearing, people are pretty optimistic that you'll be able to get through the winter. There's been some luck from the standpoint of weather. The Asian economy not recovering that quickly, and then a lot of steps that you've taken. How do you explain the relatively good situation right now? Are you optimistic that Europe will get through the winter? And then we can talk about maybe a more difficult next winter.
Thank you, and good evening, everybody. Indeed, we were sure that we will get through this winter already a couple of weeks ago when heating season started, and even prior to that when our underground gas storage was filled at sufficient levels. And at the very moment when we knew that our temporary emergency measures have been working sufficiently, then we set our horizon view to next winter because we are not out of woods yet. Actually, just 2 days ago, I was in northern part of Sweden, where me and my colleagues discussed the priorities for the first half of 2023 with Swedish presidency and Swedish government. And we agreed that we will do our utmost to now move to the medium and long-term priorities, back to these, because last year at EU level we had 12 ministerial meetings for energy ministers. Each time we delivered another emergency proposal. We targeted an underground gas storage obligation. We granted our storage sites a strategic position in our infrastructure. We agreed that we will cut, and we did cut, our energy consumption, both gas consumption all across Europe. EU 27 member states since August cut their gas consumption by 20%, and that's on top of good and mild winter weather has also played its role, so that right now the gas price is down to the level that it was a year ago. So in January, before Russia started its atrocious war against Ukraine, and before Russia opened the second front against Europe using its fossil fuel supplies against our economy and aiming to create immense problems to our businesses and also retail consumers.
How do you explain the reduction in consumption that's taken place? How much of it do you think is, well, of course you set goals for the different countries, but how much is it a result of voluntary reduction of consumption by households, by individual consumers, and how much is a result of potential problems with the economy, with industry having some problems, or is it a combination? How would you explain the reduction, which certainly has been, helped the price of gas?
Before the war, or in 2021, European gas consumption was divided into 3 big blocks. One is industry, another is housing, heating, and third one was power generation. And all these three sectors have reduced their gas consumption. In power generation, gas is just too expensive, so all the other alternatives are coming to the market before we will use our gas-fired power plants. In housing sector, of course, people do their best to save from heating bills, but on top of that, this has been extraordinary mild winter so far. So just a couple of weeks ago, there were, well, very warm temperatures all across Europe. And third, industry is also reacting to the price signals. Unfortunately, in some occasions, it means that they are, well, cutting their production, and this is a new challenge for us, how to support our industry and secure that competitiveness of EU energy-intensive industry will be kept. But savings played a significant role. On top of that, we were able to promote renewables. So in several sectors where it was possible to replace fossil gas with renewables, where it was possible to electrify, we have done so, and actually year 2022 was extraordinary year for our renewable production. More than 40 gigawatts of solar, new installed solar capacity to our grids, also very good year for wind, and the targets for next year are even higher. From our side, we have done our best to address the existing bottlenecks. First of them is permitting. It takes years in Europe, and now, with the help of national ministers, we agreed that renewable installations, they are granted the position of overriding public interest. That significantly shortens environmental and administrative permitting procedures. And on top of that, we have also mapped the supply chain and from where we can receive additional engines for windmills, or how to diversify solar PV production, because we don't want to replace fossil fuel dependency with dependence on solar panels from only one single supplier.
And did renewables expand in 2022 faster than had been predicted?
Indeed, they did. This was a record year, and of course, the role to make investment decisions was there also from our side, because already in 2019, European Commission and our President Ursula von der Leyen announced that our flagship program will be a Green Deal. We increased the targets for renewables. That was clear signal for investors. And when we presented our Green Deal, then it was not only about climate, but it was also presented as our growth strategy. Now we know that Green Deal is also a key for our security of supply.
Right, and I want to come back to renewables and come back to maybe a question on the effect of the present situation on the green transition. But first, let's go to 2023, where there, are perceived risks. There'll be not much Russian gas, if any, that will help refill storage, maybe a recovery in Asia, other factors. How concerned are you about next winter, and what steps are you taking to mitigate? And I might add, and what can other countries, like the United States, but other countries as well, do to help ensure that you don't have a problem next winter?
First of all, last spring we were in a very difficult situation because some major underground gas storage sites in Europe were owned by Russian companies. And Russia decided not to fill these sites. This is different situation right now. Some of our governments nationalized these underground gas storage sites. Others are following very closely that these storage sites are filled. And that means that right now, still at the level of 82%, we do have in our storage more gas than we received from Russia in 2022. So this is necessary buffer. Of course, due to the heating season, the withdrawal has started, but we might end up this heating season with relatively full storage, and that helps us to be better prepared for next winter. Our strategy to get rid of this dangerous dependence on Russian fossil fuels is built on 3 pillars. First of all, we will diversify our supply routes, and last year we also hit another record. This was a level of LNG delivered to Europe and regasification capacity. So when year earlier in 2021 it was 81 billion cubic meters, then year 2022 it was more than 134 billion cubic meters. So we almost maximized our regasification capabilities, but this year several member states will receive additional FSRU units, so we can increase even our capacity to receive LNG more. And I have to admit, US played a major role. We received more LNG from United States than in the spring President Biden and President von der Leyen were announcing. But the other trusted partners like Norway, also Azerbaijan, played their part. We received more gas from UK, and we signed several very important memorandums of understanding, one of them with Egypt and Israel, for example, that has also very symbolic value. So first pillar, to diversify. Second, was to promote renewables. And there we were successful already last year, but this year we hope that it will deliver even more alternative supplies to us, down to our markets. And third, there is not enough gas available globally to replace this Russian 155 billion cubic meters. So third is saving. Without saving, we will face the situation that might hurt our industry, because our households and our power generation are protected consumers. So there will be no blackouts due to the lack of access to the enough volumes of gas. But industry is the one who faces the biggest challenges in Europe, and that's why we are asking also households to play their part. If you save from heating your room, then you might save also your job in the industrial sector.
Yeah, you know, you're probably naturally an optimistic person. Are you optimistic that you'll get through this year, get through 2023 in the winter, next winter, okay?
I do believe that we have been able to keep the unity among 27 member states.
Yeah.
And we have been, the decision process at EU level has been extraordinarily fast. So usually it takes us a year to negotiate our legislative proposals. In the middle of the summer 2022, we managed to negotiate with all 27 member states only within 5 days the agreement that all member states will cut their gas consumptions. So it took only 5 days. Everybody understood that there is a urgency. And if we will signal this plan in the middle of the summer, then it helps us to get through this winter. So we have very good track record, and I do believe that we have a plan in place to be prepared for next winter too. But of course, we don't have to take care of our own needs only. For example, if we are now reaching out to our gas suppliers and negotiating on behalf of EU, then this is not only EU 27. We are offering this joint purchasing platform also to our closest neighbors in Western Balkans, but also in Moldova and Ukraine. And we are taking our neighbors as part of our energy system.
let me ask you this. You know, gas is obviously going to continue to be important, certainly for at least the short to the midterm. The green transition is also moving along quickly, as you say. I think there's been some criticism that, well, gee, is the EU forgetting about the green transition with all of this emphasis on gas? Or is it a situation where, I know I've certainly taken the position that it's not necessarily an either-or proposition, and you can have gas, you can decarbonize gas at the same time that you're doing the green transition. So how do you answer the critics that people concerned, well, the EU isn't as committed as it used to be?
We do have clear targets in place that member states, what level of renewables member states should have in their energy mix. And we have these targets already in place for 2020. In 2020, our target was 20% of our energy consumption should come from renewables. It was COVID year and extraordinary year, but overall we managed to achieve the target and even higher levels of renewables in our energy mix. Now we are at final stage to negotiate with our member states targets, higher targets for 2030. And I truly hope that the final agreement will be that 45% of our energy consumption will be covered by renewables. That means massive investments into renewables, but already last year, for example, in power generation, we received more electricity for renewables than from fossil fuel power producers. And on top of that, there is also nuclear. So 38% of electricity came from renewable sources. And now we are also discussing how to bring this benefit of cheap renewables to our retail consumers, because on top of extremely high gas prices in Europe, our industry and households have been facing the situation that electricity prices have been extremely high. And we plan to propose a renewed electricity market design proposal very soon that offers our industry a broader, wider palette of contractual schemes with renewable producers, for example, power purchase agreements, so that they know that for decades to come they can receive electricity with predictable price.
Okay. You know, speaking of price, it really is interesting that the EU, you implemented your oil sanctions regime December 15th, I guess, that refined products will be sanctioned, February 5th. Price caps went into effect at $60, capping oil, Russian oil at $60. Gas is much cheaper than the trigger price on the gas cap regulation that will go into effect in February. It gets triggered, for 3 days in a row at 180 euros per megawatt hour. And now it's, is it below 100 now? Yeah. So how do you explain the prices now? And how necessary are the price caps given where things are from a price standpoint? Is it that this is insurance against big increases in price? How do you explain all this? And I'd be curious to see how you respond.
The price cap that we proposed together with G7 partners and Australia for Russian oil was necessary to cut the Russian revenues. We don't want to finance their war against Ukraine, and this was on top of the decision made by our member states that since 5th of December, we are not buying Russian crude oil with one exemption. This exemption is Druzhba pipeline that delivers some oil to our landlocked countries who don't have ready alternatives to receive seaborne alternative shipments. And what we have seen so far is that this price cap, and of course our oil sanctions too, already impact Russian revenues. If they find alternative buyers, they have to give significant discounts, and that means that we have done things in a right way. And on top of that, we announced our sanctions already in June. So it shows that we gave relatively reasonable time for our industry and member states for transitioning away from Russian shipments. And due to that, the impact to our economy has not been significant. Of course, there is another challenge in February when sanctions that will cover refined products will step in. And we have to find also alternative suppliers for diesel, for example, because diesel is the one that our transport sector needs. But there are already several alternative suppliers who have announced that they will increase their shipments to Europe. Well, if we are here, then in this region, Kuwait has announced that they will more than fivefold their shipments of diesel to EU this year, 2023.
Just one or two more things on the price cap. As you know, there has been some significant criticism, particularly among Central and Eastern European member states, that the $60 cap on oil was too high, and that if Russia had to sell at $60, hey, they've sold at $60 or less a lot of the last many years. But do you, just from your prior answer, it sounds like you're saying that it's worked out okay because that $60 price cap is pushing prices even below the $60. And are you saying also that that may not have happened without the price cap? Or maybe that's a leading question, I don't know. But
if decisions are delivering the results that we were aiming for, then no one knows what decision exactly was a crucial one. But this is true that right now, based on our best intelligence, Russia is selling its Ural crude with lower price than price cap agreed by us with our partners. And the same happened with natural gas. So the last weeks in December, we also announced that we will introduce a price cap for LNG. And it was difficult discussion, what is the right price level, because we have to keep in mind that we are in constant competition with Asian market, and there is big unknown factor how Chinese decision to end the lockdown measures, COVID lockdown measures, will impact their consumption. But we set a target price at the level of 180. Since then, the price has been decreasing constantly, and right now, in the morning, it was at 62.
That's amazing.
That's a level of double as it was just 2 years ago. But as I was mentioning, this is the same level as it was in 17th of January last year. I think with that price level, our industry can survive.
Do you have a concern, or is it purely theoretical, that if the prices do go back up and it triggers the 180, and let's say the prices go to, I don't know, 240, 250, and you have a cap at 180, that the gas will start all going to Asia?
We are in the situation where Asian market is also significant. At the same time, we do have a wonderful examples how our Asian partners, Japan, South Korea, were willing to reroute some of the LNG shipments that were supposed to arrive their terminals in the spring last year to Europe, because at that moment we were in the territories of unknown waters. And I know also that our partners in Asia, they are also analyzing what kind of fuel switch could allow world markets to get more LNG that they don't consume. Because we have to keep in mind that last year Russia didn't deliver to EU markets approximately 70 billion cubic meters of pipeline gas. And due to the fact that they don't have many alternative pipelines to other markets, they have pipeline to Turkey, relatively modest access to Chinese market. That means that this is minus 70 billion cubic meters from world gas market. And all the measures of savings across the globe will help us to tackle this very tense situation in the gas market.
So at the end of the day, it's worth the risk. Then hopefully you won't even get to the point where you have to trigger the gas. It's an insurance provision in a sense. Yeah.
Yes, and this was not, this was our risk that we were so dependent on Russian gas. Yeah. But the very moment when Russia started the war, it was clear that we have to do what we need to do to get rid of this dependency, because they were the ones who were manipulating our markets. Yeah.
Our time is up, but I would like to ask one last question, and then any final comments you may have. And it's been a terrific conversation. There's been a lot of discussion here over the last couple of days about our, inflation, the IRA, Inflation Reduction Act, which is sort of a funny name for it, but in any event, in Europe, a lot of people in Europe, as you well know, have been upset about some of the provisions in the act, and our president has said that hey, we had no intention of hurting Europe. Let's work out whatever the issues are. How do you see it? Do you see this as a threat to transatlantic unity, or are you confident? We'll work it through. We've had various trade disputes in the past, and we managed to always get through it. What do you think?
I do believe that both our presidents are willing to invest a lot to keep transatlantic relationship at that good level like it is right now. And for us, it is important that we will keep the level playing field, and that decisions made by Americans or Europeans will not halt the green transition, because we are sharing the same values. We are both committed to same policies, and if we are working in a way that there is no no unfair competition rules, we will both benefit from that. And I know that there is a working group that will solve all of those questionable aspects of this legislation.
Yeah, and the most important thing is that we both, on both sides of the ocean, we do everything to increase green technologies. Anyway, any final comments that you have, or?
I think that we covered a lot, and I will.
We had for 20 minutes. It's not bad.
And I hope that we will meet soon again. So it is always a pleasure to have a conversation.
Well, thank you very much. And there were some tough questions, and thank you for your, very straightforward answers. And I know everybody here appreciated your being here, and look forward to seeing you again soon.
Thank you.
Yeah.